Hello and welcome to the Awesomeness in Action radio show. I'm your host, Rashana Price, known as the Giver of Awesomeness, international author, coach, speaker, and trainer. So today's show is brought to you and sponsored by Erie Success. Erie Success is a corporate sponsor that works to help organizations overcome adult bullying and conflict resolution. You can learn more about Erie Success by visiting their website at eriesuccess.com. That's EYRIE success.com. Our second sponsor is known as the Keto Mommy Makeover. Her name is Ilika Follett. You can learn more about her by going to Instagram, finding her at Keto Mommy Makeover. You can also go to her website at lifehealthnow.com. That's lifehealthnow.com. We appreciate all of our sponsors, and today's show is one that I'm very excited about because we have with us today AJ Ali. AJ, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. I want to make sure our listeners know a little bit more about you because you are the director and producer of a film that I've watched that we're going to talk about. It's called Walking While Black. L.O.V.E, and L.O.V.E is an acronym, is the answer. This is an award-winning featured-length documentary. It is involving the relations between between the police and the community. And what I love about the documentary is that it really starts to showcase specifically what happens behind the scenes, what happens in the lives of police officers and in the lives of the community that they police, and how love is truly the answer. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. I also want our listeners to know that you are a husband, that you live with your wife, Jane. You all been married 26 years and
Yeah.
26 years, and that you're a veteran. So thank you for your service as well in the Air Force. Yes. So welcome to the show. Yeah.
So good to be here. Yeah.
Absolutely. So one of the reasons that when we first met and when we spoke on the phone, and I was sharing, is that this documentary, Walking While Black, came out in 2017, and now it's a movement. So will you tell listeners a little bit more about how you got started in filmmaking and a little bit more about your background?
Sure. I got into media, creation of media, while I was in the Air Force. In 1983, I was afforded the opportunity to pick whatever career field I wanted, and I chose journalism and media relations. So they lumped that under the umbrella of what's called public affairs. And I started in print and became an editor of a newspaper, a weekly newspaper. They trained me in photography and writing and all that stuff. And then years into it, after getting out of the Air Force, I started to work on commercials and PSAs for nonprofits, and then television shows and music production and writing and film. So Walking While Black, Love is the Answer is my second film, among many other projects.
Yes. What I love about your journey, you didn't say it that way, but as you were explaining, you had all these skills. You were learning about different parts of media, the writing aspects, the film aspects, the photography, all of that. And all of that you learned in the Air Force. And then when you came out, you started to bring that into the communities that you've served and lived in.
Yeah, that's right. And I started with photography. We have these now, right?
Right, the phones, yes.
When I started, it was the big old clunky camera. You take your shots, and then you go into the dark room and you spend hours in there. And so yeah. And then with the newspaper, there was no digital. It was get it all set and then typeset at another location. You had these big old machines and you had to hand place letters, and if you saw a mistake, you didn't go in and just fix it. You had to cut it out with a little knife and glue it back in. So I've been in the game for a long time and seen a lot of changes in 40 years.
Wow. Yeah. The dark room, right? Like you have no idea what the picture really looks like because it hasn't been developed yet. It's that longer process of time. Yeah. Some
people
surprises.
don't know anything about that. They get everything. It's great to be in the instantaneous world now, right?
I think it has its advantages and disadvantages. So I grew up in upstate New York.
Yeah.
So Kodak was a company that I remember fondly and was able to actually go into their manufacturing plant where they made single-use cameras. So I'm dating myself as well. And so, so those cameras, seeing that film getting taken out, someone was developing it, and even waiting 2 or 3 days to get prints was a big deal. Now it's right on your phone.
Yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
used to be exciting, right?
Mhm.
To make that trip to the store and pick up your photos and finally see what you shot a week ago or days ago.
Yeah. Yeah. It was an adventure. And some of, I mean, at the time, 24 or 35 different exposures, maybe 12 of them were good if I didn't have the
Right,
photography
right.
skills. Yes, but that process of development takes time, and it's a part of the craft, the artistry that creates such bodies of work like While Black, Love is the Answer, the film that you've done, and other work that you've done. We have been speaking with AJ Ali, who is the director, producer. He's a TV host. He has been working in media for over 26 years. Is that correct, AJ?
Well, that's how long I've been married. I've
That's
been
how
in
long
media.
you've been married. How long?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So I've been
So
in media since 1983.
that's
Little
right. A
little longer.
little longer than that. We won't date you. Uh, we won't
That's
date you any
okay.
more than we already have. So before the break, we were talking about your experiences, all the things that you've done. And I want us to jump into your film, Walking While Black, Love is the Answer. It is a documentary that is award winning, and it really takes the conversation of community relations between community members, police officers, those that are supporting the communities to another level. How did this project really come to be? Because you have to create in your mind first before you ever bring something to film or to print. So what was that journey like for you?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And this one, you know, sometimes you pick a project and other times a project will pick you, right?
Mhm.
And this was certainly one of those times. And I'm going to even take it a little step further and say that I think, you know, God decided that I needed to go down this path because this is certainly not something I picked.
Mm.
And when it tried to pick me, I tried to run away from it at first.
Okay.
This all started because I was racially profiled in my then hometown of Howard County, Maryland. I was walking down the street and got stopped by an officer. And after a short conversation that was very uncomfortable, including him threatening me with arrest for robbery that wasn't taking place, I asked him, seriously, why are you stopping me? And he said, because we're stopping everyone who looks like they're not from this neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So this is when I was going for a walk in my own neighborhood.
Right.
And I did what I would normally do as a Black man being racially profiled for the umpteenth time. I tried to get out of there as soon as I could, unharmed, alive. And I thought I was doing a pretty good job of that with leaving that first officer when he finally just didn't have anything else to say. And I started to walk away. A few minutes later, he and two other officers, so three police cars, pulled up,
Wow.
stopped me, ran up to me, yelling at me, trying to bait me into pushing them off or doing something, you know, that would have gotten me hurt or killed.
Yeah.
And I was on the side of the road for about an hour, and I was fortunate enough to be able to call my attorney and have him on speakerphone so that it would kind of let them know that there was someone else there. That may have saved me that day. And I reported it, didn't get any apology or response or anything. And finally, I decided I was going to tell a story. And that story at first was an op-ed that I wrote. I got a
Mhm.
responses from all over the country, mostly from Black mothers who thanked me for giving them some advice about how to teach their sons and daughters about what to do when they get stopped by the police.
Mhm.
Um, from that point, I started to get harassed by some members of that police department, and that harassment went on for about a year. Where
Wow.
anytime my wife and I left the house or we were out and about town, we would get followed, and we got stopped several times. And it was really, really a scary, hairy time because we didn't know who to go to, what who to
How?
turn to.
Yeah.
Uh, and so finally, I decided I was going to tell a story, a bigger story. And that's when I decided to make this film. But I really didn't want to go down that road
Mhm.
because it put a target on my back, and I got threats from not only people in that community who were in law enforcement, but others from around the country. Some pretty nasty things that I probably should have reported to the FBI.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I just kept forging ahead and just decided, well, if they're going to come after me, I'm gonna have this story to tell, and I'm gonna get this story out first. So it took about 4.5 years.
Okay.
The film, we started working on it in 2012. It came out in
17.
2017. And I will say that at first I wanted to make a film that would just get all of them fired. I just wanted to make a film that would just point out the problems, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of those problems on the news
Mhm.
seemingly every day for many years now. And before that, it was happening, but it just wasn't covered. Um, about 2.5 years into the journey, I had a change of heart, and God really placed it on my heart to tell a different story, which is if we're going to solve this issue of racial inequity, we've got to find a way to do it by loving each other.
Yes.
We've got to teach people how to love each other. We got to teach people how to love themselves, and then to love each other. And that was put on my heart September 25th, 2014, that love is the answer.
Love
And
is the answer.
I was
Yes.
reminded of those words. Those were the last words my brother Abby spoke when he passed away of cancer in 1998. And those words came
Mhm.
back to me. And that's what I decided to do. And that's where we took this film and the movement that it has inspired. And we're seeing people change. We're seeing hearts transformed. We're
Yeah.
seeing policies change. And it's become a popular tool, this film and the book and the webinars have become popular within law enforcement circles, and now we just need it to grow. We just need more people to learn about love is the answer and put it into effect in their lives.
Yeah. The love is the answer part is the difference, I would say, between other films that want to have these conversations, that want to lead conversations, I'll say other media, because it's going to the focus on the learning that has to happen. That love is that acronym. It's the learning about the people that are there. In the film, it's articulated by saying that when you really know someone, when it's not just a they or a them, it's an actual person with a name and they have a story that changes everything.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And
Mhm.
we've actually, we created this acronym, and we turned it into a pledge so that people can
Oh.
can learn it and say it to themselves when
Mhm.
they're in a situation where someone's really bugging them, right?
Yeah,
Or
that
if
happens.
that
Yes.
happens, yeah.
Yes.
If you're a peace officer, to have this on a little piece of paper or something in your car or in your wallet, and
Mhm.
say this to yourself before you get on duty, and maybe several times during the day, and all of us really who are dealing with anyone, any kind of interpersonal relationships, we should say, can I share the pledge with you?
Please play, please, please. Absolutely.
So the pledge goes like this. I pledge to learn about the people in my community, to unconditionally open my heart to their needs as if they were all immediate family members, to volunteer to be part of the solution in their life during both good and challenging times, and to empower everyone I meet to do the same as if our lives depended on each other. So that's learn, open, volunteer,
Volunteer and
empower,
power.
love.
Yes. And it's a pledge. It is that hand across the heart. It is that bowed knee. It's that understanding that it's internal, that it has to be, and that you would treat people like your family, maybe even more than family, because that is one of the stories as well. There's an officer, Officer McMillan, Miller,
There's Tim McMillan,
Tim McMillan.
who
Mhm.
stopped a 16-year-old boy at the time on driving.
Yes.
He thought at first it was a drunk driver, and then as he looked closer, he saw the phone in the hand that he was texting.
Yeah.
And
It-
Tim is white, and the young man that he pulled over is black,
mhm.
and And of course, all this is happening during the time that pretty much, everything's coming out in the news now.
Yes.
And he thought, wow, this is going to be easier than a drunk driver. And he pulled the young man over, and when he pulled him over,
Mhm.
hmm,
The
the
fear.
boy,
The
the boy
fear.
was so scared,
Yeah.
and Tim saw that, and he also looked into his eyes.
Mhm.
He saw that his eyes looked just like his son's.
Those brown eyes, he said.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was just a beautiful moment where it hit him, that this young man who could be my son is so scared right now. He thinks I'm going to hurt him because of
Mhm.
probably what he's seen,
Mhm.
Um, and Tim assured him that he was not there to hurt him,
Yep.
that he just wanted him to grow up and be somebody and to be safe. And, that story, which is in the film, is just, it's amazing. And to know the man, Tim McClellan, he's an amazing man. I mean, he
Yeah.
lives it out. These
Mhm.
principles, he lives these love is the answer principles out. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was a real joy to have him. And there's one of many great stories in that film.
Many, many great stories. Tim's heart for the pause that's talked about so much, if we could just take a pause, take a minute in that moment, the way he's telling the story and as it's there, I was very drawn in as a mother myself, as a wife, to know that in those moments, depending on who is on the other side of that, that could be the difference between something going really well or something not, something being escalated or something being de-escalated. And
Yeah,
and that was a powerful story that I believe for many as they watch the film, as they interact with your work, it's a difference maker. It's that pause that has to happen to say, what's happening right now? And even the understanding, like Tim was like, oh, he's a drunk driver. This will be easy. And then it was a shift. It's like a pin in the map that changed the trajectory. Just like for you that day when you were walking in your neighborhood, and it was finally the day that you were like, I'm not going to sit
yeah,
anymore on the side of the road, which was an aha. I didn't know that sitting on the side of the road, because it happens and it's shown a lot, is actually not procedure.
mm.
That's what the female officer talked about in your story as well. Did you have other documentary experiences and ahas of like, oh, this is what we were taught is not right or isn't procedure?
Well, wow, Bobby Kimbrough, Sheriff Bobby Kimbrough,
Yes.
is in the film,
Mm-hmm.
and he shared a story, and along with some of the other black officers that are in the movie, they shared stories about how hard it was for them uh, to be black officers.
Mm-hmm.
That they will get harassed by people from our community because they're black and they're police officers.
Yeah.
But then they'll also experience a tremendous amount of racism. Every single black cop I've spoken with, and I'm talking about hundreds from
Wow.
all over the country, have said the same exact thing to me. I love being a cop, but there's so much racism within policing, with white cops being racist towards black cops, that it makes it difficult for them to put that uniform on sometimes, that they want to serve their community in the best way possible. But
Mm-hmm.
then they've got members of the community that are calling them names, and they've got their own officers doing things like putting bananas in their car and hanging nooses and
Mm-hmm.
and displaying Confederate flags and things like that going on all the time. This isn't isolated. This is not just happening in the South. Literally every black officer I've spoken with, and I've spoken with hundreds from all over the country, all 50 states, have said the same thing to
Mm-hmm.
me. And that's mind blowing that a person is trying to do their job and do something that can be very beneficial to the community.
Community. Very,
You know,
yes.
keeping the peace. Like
Mhm.
Bobby Kimbrough, like I mentioned, one of the sweetest men around. He's a sheriff now in Forsyth County, North Carolina.
Oh,
He's got a
okay.
tough job. He's right down the street from you,
He is.
and he is, he has been tormented at times by people in his own profession because of the color of his skin. Same thing with Chief Melvin Russell, who was a chief in Baltimore and is now with us as Senior VP of Criminal Justice Relations. Same thing with Jackie Seabrooks, who's an interim chief in Santa Monica, where she retired from and came back to help them through a tough spell. And if you name a Black officer, and they'll tell you some stories about how tough it is. And so that was a mind-blowing thing for me to learn how much they need our support for their mental health, their emotional health, even their physical health, because they find themselves breaking down from the stress.
Yeah.
And it's affecting their bodies, their hearts, you know? And so we've got to really, as a community, we've got to say, do we want to be safe? If so, then there's no defunding the police. We have to have peace officers to keep the peace, because there are some bad folks out there. Yeah. But also, we need to step up and do things a little differently and let them know how much we love them. Because if we do that, we give them the strength to go on a tough day, to continue to serve and protect and keep that oath up that they took. We show them a little bit of appreciation. It goes a long, long way. And we give them the strength to fight inside their department for racial equity as well.
Yes.
They're champions for us. And I'm not just saying it's not just Black officers. There are a lot of Latino and Asian and white officers who really want to do the right thing. And they need our support. They need our support to be able to do that. We need to love them and love them to life.
Ooh, love them to life. Love is the answer, that opportunity for them to feel empowered and like they have backing. That's what I hear too. It's the understanding for some going into their force on a daily basis could be isolating. And isolating and alone is a hard thing, no matter what skills you have, no matter what badge you have or other tools. It can still create a burden or wear on the soul, really. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that love you to life, that's a saying that my friend Melvin Russell says all the time. And he's famous for loving people to life.
Loving people to life.
Yeah.
Yeah, he talked about moving through the community in Baltimore and how he would walk the streets. He would park the patrol car. He wasn't riding through the neighborhood like he wasn't a part of it. He was a part of it. And he would say, like, some neighbors would offer chicken and roast beef, and he would eat the roast beef and then come back later because the chicken will hold, fried chicken, it'll be good later, or you can eat it cold.
Yes.
It's those relationships that are missing in many communities. And so one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, because you've moved through this conversation and navigate it continuously, working with police forces, working in communities, how do people that want to get involved, how do they start to really go about asking questions in their community? Maybe their community seems relatively safe, but they still want to be involved. What can they do?
Yeah, my friend Omar Neal, former mayor of Tuskegee and a former police officer as well, he always says, make your friends before you need them.
Okay.
Make your friends before you need them, right? So I've made it a practice. I haven't been able to do it recently because of COVID, but when I'm out, at a coffee shop, when I used to be out of a coffee shop pre-COVID, if I saw a cop walk in, I'd say hello. If I had extra money in my pocket, I'd offer to buy the coffee. I let them know that they were appreciated. And at first, when I started to do that, I started to do that out of self-preservation, because when I moved from Maryland back to Santa Monica, and I live in Henderson, Nevada now, but for a while living in Santa Monica, when I first got there, every time I saw a police officer, I would say hello, let them know the area that I lived in, and invite them to say hello anytime they saw me. And I did that for a reason, because I wanted them to know, that I care about them, but also that, we need to build a relationship.
Yeah.
I can't be, oh, there's that Black guy in the hoodie, let me go see what he's up to.
Yep.
No, I needed to be a name and a face and a person, a human being that
Mhm.
lived in that community. And I needed them to know that it was important to me for them to know who I was.
Yeah.
And so that went a long way because it
Mhm.
opened up doors. And what I found was when I did that, um, I found that they were people too. When I looked beyond the badge
Yeah.
and the gun, there was a person there with a family,
Yep.
right?
Yep. That's
Doing a
doing their
job of,
job.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And 99% of the time doing a great job,
Mhm.
you know. But what it did is it let the 1% who weren't doing a great job know that we were watching them too, right? And that we wanted the best for them, but we also wanted the best for us. We expected them to perform in a certain way, right? Protect and serve, equal justice under the law. And
Mhm.
so I've talked to thousands of people, maybe tens of thousands of people around the country now, because more than 50,000 people have seen the film. And I tell as many as I can, strike up a conversation, build a relationship with
Yes.
someone who doesn't look like you, right? And if they're
Mhm.
if you're not a cop, you see a cop in your community more than once, say hello that second time, right? Get to
Mhm.
know each other. It makes a tremendous difference, and it also helps to weed out those bad apples because
Ooh, that's
when they
good.
know they're not anonymous, right? They have
Yeah.
to act a different way, or they have to get out of the profession.
That is powerful, specific, and actionable for those that are ready. Buying a cup of coffee, even virtually, having a
Yeah.
sending a gift card to someone to say, I saw you and I noticed that you were serving. Thank you so much. Sharing the love, spreading the love so that the community can continue to connect with one another. We've been speaking with AJ Ali. He is the CEO and founder of Love is the Answer. It is a movement. And the film, Walking While Black, Love is the Answer, is a project that has been out in media since 2017. It's a documentary that is award winning. And what I want us to finish up with, AJ, because we've talked about so many things, is this movement has to get out there even more. I know you're spending a lot of time with law enforcement, and you just gave listeners before the break specific things that they can do to continue to engage and make friends before they need them with law enforcement. So, what other areas, products, services can people get involved in? I know you have a website. Share a little bit more about where people can find you.
Thank you, Rashana. Yes, the website is loveistheanswermovement.com.
Mhm.
Loveistheanswermovement.com. And on there, you'll find news clips of coverage that we've gotten from around the country. You'll see examples of things that people can do to get involved. You'll see a link there to get the book and the film. You can buy the book for $30, and it's a director's edition. We have a limited supply of those where you get a film download for free along with that purchase. You can also rent the film for $9.99 for 3 days. You can do that there. And you can learn about what other people are doing around the country. We're asking people to watch the film, read the book, and do the work. And when I say do the work, in the 482-page book that includes contributions from 29 different people, about a third of them are members of law enforcement, and the other two-thirds are just rest of the community.
Mhm.
There are stories in there from every walk of life about how to make things better between each other, how we can learn to love ourselves and each other. But there's a couple action steps out of the 25 that we have in the book. There are two that I'm asking people to do like right away. And one of them is after they've seen the film and read the book, to get together with two or three other people who have done the same thing and find someone in their community that needs help and simply help them. Form a what we call a Love is the Answer mentoring circle around them. It's kind of like,
Okay.
Rashawn, it's kind of like a personal advisory board, right?
Yes.
Or a personal board of directors,
Mhm.
where you go to that person for advice, those three or four people for advice, and you know they'll pick up, and you know that they'll be there with you through good and bad times. You know that they will love you, learn about you, open their heart to you, volunteer themselves to be part of the solution in your life, and then empower you. And so we've seen amazing things happen with that. In fact, there was a man who had recently got out of prison in Detroit, and his wife was at a screening of our film at a college. And she went and got him, picked him up, and brought him to speak with us afterwards. And she told me that her husband just got out of prison months ago. No one was giving him a chance. She was concerned for him and their family. He couldn't get a job. No one would train him. No one would give him time of day because he had spent time, but he had done his time.
It's time.
Right?
It's time. Yeah.
And so he's out and he needs a second chance. So what did I do? I went to 3 people that were there. I went to an educator, I went to a retired police officer, and I went to a business person. And I said, it's time for y'all to put love into action. I need y'all to become this family's personal advisory board. That's the term I used at the term. Now we call them mentoring circles.
Okay.
And they agreed on the spot. They agreed on the spot to be there for that family. And the lady broke down in tears because you could just see the relief. You could see the stress just falling off. And her husband was so grateful. And it turned things around. It turned things around for that family. Now, can you imagine, had he not gotten that support, would he have fallen into the recidivism crack, right? Would he have decided, I got to find a way to feed my family somehow, some way, and wind up back in the system? Right?
Yeah.
So I'm asking people, form a mentoring circle, commit to someone, a returning citizen, a young person, a person on your job who's having a hard time, anyone. You don't know what kind of a difference you're going to make in that person's life. Your neighbor that you haven't spoken to in 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Find someone. And show them some love, right? Everybody needs that. I've got a mentoring circle. I've got people around me that are my personal mentoring circle. The other thing I'm asking people to do is a little harder. It's a little more time consuming, but it's garden. Create and maintain a love garden with some other people. So police and others from the community to find a piece of land or a garden that's not been kept up and commit to doing that together. The sheriff's department in L.A., in Compton.
Oh, been to Compton.
Has a youth athletic or activities program there.
Okay.
You know, the sheriff's deputies and the students grew 10,000 pounds of food and gave them away to older people in that community that were food insecure.
Yes.
They couldn't get to a store because there was no store in the community. Right?
Yep. And
what
we
did
know
that do for the people of that community?
Yeah, in low-income communities, there are food deserts. So having that garden, that's powerful.
Yeah. So those are just 2 of 25 suggestions that we have in our book, but anyone can become a mentor to someone. Anyone can love on their neighbor. And that's what we're trying to get people to do. We're
going to do it. We are going to go from trying to doing. So you said, watch the book, watch the film, read the book, and then do the work. Do the work. And start with the mentoring circle, find a piece of land, start gardening, get a group of people together and spread the word. So AJ, I am so glad that you came. You are welcome back anytime to talk about this project, other projects. It has been a pleasure. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, this is great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And to everyone listening, thank you for tuning in to the Awesomeness in Action radio show. I'm your host, Rashana Price. We'll be back next Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And remember, if you are interested in sponsorship and advertisement, you can email me at radio@giverofawesomeness.com. That's radio@giverofawesomeness.com. Until next time, remember to be blessed and remember, awesomeness is in you.